This is Asian View from NHK World Japan. I'm Raja Pradhan. A United Nations report says Afghanistan's Taliban interim government has been committing human rights violations, including extrajudicial killings. The UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, or UNAMA, released a report covering the 10 months from last August after the Taliban seized power.
I also urge the international community not to forget the people of Afghanistan, who continue to face some of the most significant challenges.
The report says UNAMA confirmed 160 extrajudicial killings of former Afghan soldiers, police, and government officials by the de facto authorities. Sri Lankan lawmakers have elected Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe as the country's new president. He had been acting in the role since last week. That's when former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country and resigned amid months of anti-government protests over a worsening economic crisis. Sri Lanka has been struggling with acute inflation and shortages of essentials, including fuel and food. Japan's trade deficit rose to a record in the first 6 months of the year. The figure was pushed up by soaring energy costs amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Finance Ministry officials issued preliminary data for the January to June period on Thursday. They show a trade deficit of nearly $57 billion. It's the highest half-year number since officials started keeping comparable data back in 1979. Imports for the period shot up 38% in yen terms from a year earlier. Officials say the rapid depreciation of the yen against the dollar was another factor behind the deficit's increase. This is NHK World Japan. A senior member of the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics Organizing Committee may have accepted money from a sponsor. Takahashi Haruyuki was on the committee's executive board. His Tokyo-based company signed a consulting contract with apparel company Aoki Holdings, which supplied official uniforms. Sources say Takashi's company allegedly received hundreds of thousands of dollars from the company while he served on the executive board. Tokyo prosecutors have questioned the former chair of the company, who admitted to paying the money. Takashi has denied giving any favors to the apparel company with regard to the Olympics. Japan's criminal code forbids members of the organizing committee's executive board from accepting money or gifts related to their duties. Tokyo reported more than 30,000 new coronavirus infections on Thursday. The figure is a record-high daily tally. The government's top coronavirus advisor says the number of infections across Japan may end up double that of the previous surge in cases before they get better. Officials are not looking to reintroduce COVID-19 restrictions. Instead, they're pushing medical workers and people at risk of becoming seriously ill to get a fourth vaccine shot. A group of researchers says 3 antiviral drugs approved in Japan are highly effective against the Omicron subvariant BA.5. The group, including researchers of the University of Tokyo, released the results in the New England Journal of Medicine. The researchers infected cultured cells with the BA.5 variant and administered a wide variety of drugs to the cells. They checked to what extent multiplication of the virus was suppressed by the drugs. They say the 3 antiviral drugs for COVID-19, remdesivir, molnupiravir, and nirmatrelvir-ritonavir, were highly effective against the BA.5 variant. The researchers also say some drugs using antibodies were less effective against BA.5 than previously identified virus types. The number of foreign visitors to Japan exceeded 100,000 for the 3rd straight month following the easing of border control measures. The Japan National Tourism Organization estimates about 120,000 foreigners visited Japan last month. Almost all of them were admitted for purposes other than tourism. The number of technical trainees and students entering Japan rose from the same period last year. The government had suspended their entry due to the pandemic. By country, Vietnam topped the list, followed by China and South Korea. Japan resumed accepting foreign tourists early last month. The tourism organization says only 252 foreign sightseers had arrived in Japan as of the end of June. It said the low number was mainly due to the time-consuming process of obtaining visas. This is Asian View from NHK World Japan.